It's me, Renee. I'm back. As you can see from the title, this is a bit controversial one, and I've been going back and forth if I'm going to do this or not. But I kind of decided I kind of want to do this. So yeah. Let's just get into it. So, Daughter of the Deep came out last year. It's a standalone by Rick Riordan. And a lot of people had anticipated it because Rick Riordan, it sounds interesting story, and it's a book it's not set in his normal myths universe, and it's more science fiction based than fantasy, which it's kind of fun to see something else and read something else. And as a lot of people, I pre-ordered it. I bought it, and since I live in Norway, we got it weeks before the US because Corona. They got it later. It was some weird thing. But yeah, but for some reason I didn't pick it up before. I think I picked it up in, was it in January or December? Oh, it was a few weeks ago. Anyway, a few weeks ago. So I mean, now it's the end of January, so it could still be December. But yeah, um, yeah. Honestly, and also this might you might think like you look weird. Okay, so usually I take mascara on for my videos because I kind of like to do that. Today I didn't really bother doing this because this is gonna be a ranty. Well, not ranty. It's gonna be a negative review, maybe ranty. So I thought like, why not look a bit negative or look not my perfect. Not that I look awful, but yeah, you know. So yeah, okay, this book. It is just kind of give you a little idea about how it is. My edition of it is 314 pages. And I suppose kind of editions might change, but I suppose yeah. So the book is around that those pages. I suppose some editions might be shorter, like if you like do it differently. But I suppose I mean that's more or less how long the book is. So yeah. So okay, so I knew going in it was a standalone, and I suppose that I kind of had that in mind because I was just kind of thinking, well, it's a standalone, so you're probably gonna. It can't be too. It can't. At least in my mind, it couldn't be too high stakes because a standalone, like, because I also knew that it was gonna be like a very intricate and very huge world, and that's honestly slightly part of the problem with me, at least for this book. I kind of felt like the world was so huge, but like okay, so the first chapter, nothing much happened. It was just kind of build up. The second chapter, after something huge happened, that kind of led to the rest of the book. But I'm like, uh, this is the second chapter. I'm yeah, I was like, oh my god, this happened, which was not cool. But at the same time, it's like, well, I don't care that much because like if you do something huge you should do it after like 4 or 5 chapters or 6 chapters. Like the second chapter, you haven't learned to get to know any of the characters. So no matter like even if let's say the first chapter you meet Mark and Bill, and in chapter 2 Mark and Bill get married. It takes a lot to make readers care about that because you should know characters before you or honestly at least in my head unless you know the characters you care about the characters you won't really care what happens, and that's kind of what happened here. I kind of felt like it was a huge world but and it wasn't info dumping, but I kind of felt like yeah, I just kind of felt like it in a way it moved too fast. I mean stuff happened more or less throughout the book, and I mean it's good that stuff happened. But because stuff happened so quickly, you didn't really have time to get to know the characters. So I was just like, okay, so character C is fallen ill. I should be sad probably, but I don't really care. Character B is angry. I mean, I'm just kind of using random names, random letters because no one spoil you. But yeah, character B is angry, and I'm like, maybe I should be mad that he's angry, but I don't care. Like, I just felt like it moved so quickly. I couldn't really get to learn, get to know any of the characters. And yeah, and also like something that happened pretty soon on, like the thing that happened in early. I was kind of thinking soon, like, okay, this can't happen. I mean, there's probably a cheat. There's probably a twist with this on pretty soon. I think it's probably a twist. So I didn't really feel suppose emotions I was supposed to feel. Maybe maybe it's because I'm 29 and this is a middle grade book, so maybe if people are in the age group, they will be much more shocked while reading this. Because honestly, after finishing this book, I kind of was curious, like kind of checked out. Okay, so what do people think about this book? Often I sometimes I look into reviews before starting books, but not always. But often I'm very curious about reviews about books after I read them. Kind of think about see what other people have enjoyed and liked about it. And this one I found just good reviews. Like it's a bestseller, which I suppose it's Rick Riordan, so that's not really that weird. But like on Goodreads, no, yeah, on Goodreads, on BookTube, everywhere, it's just gotten good reviews. I haven't really, well, I had heard some people talk about it in December because it was nominated for the Goodreads Choice Awards, and some people said that they enjoyed it but didn't love it. But that's more or less it. Like most of the people who have reviews of it love it, and I'm just over here like, what? Did we read the same book? Like honestly, this book it moved so quickly and so happened so quickly, and but I didn't really get to know the characters. So honestly, I skimmed a lot of it because I don't know. I suppose with this book, it's kind of one of those things where I really enjoy the concept, the idea behind it, but the execution, honestly, nah, nah, not at all. It didn't really work for me. I think in a way, mainly my issue with this one is that it's a standalone, and it feels so much like the first in the series. I suppose that's likely why. I mean, Rick Riordan up to this point, he's just written series. He's never written a standalone. He's written novellas, but they're always in like an established world. This is the first. This is his first standalone, and honestly, I think his editor should have talked to him much more because this feels honestly like a first in a series. Because if this was a first in a series, amazing. Because it's a good place to start. It gives you that insight into the world. Good, great. But as of right now, I'm pretty sure it's a standalone. I mean, I think he said that he might do a sequel or like spin-off in the future, but he hasn't been contacted to do it. And I'm like, if this is supposed to stand alone, well, then it's not doing its job. It's just not standalone. You kind of need a huge epilogue or prequel, or you need backstory. You need more to care, or at least you, in this case, being me, because yeah, I didn't care that much. I mean, it's still a beautiful cover, and I do know it's supposed to be a movie, and that's also kind of one of the things about it. So it's already been picked up. It's supposed to be a movie. I think the script is being written as we speak, which cool. But honestly, yeah, I kind of feel like it was very cinematic. This book, and nothing bad with books where stuff is cinematic. But, I mean, the difference, well, not the difference, but one of the difference between books and movies. I should have a movie here to show you. But I mean, you know what a movie is. I don't really need a movie to has an example. But yeah, the difference between a movie and, well, not the difference. One of them is that in books you can go in depth. You can give people inner thoughts. You can do so many things that you can't do as easily in movies. While movies is so visually, And yes, I mean, I suppose part of this being feeling so cinematic was that it moves so quickly, like plot point, plot point, plot point, plot point, and that can be fine in books. But the thing is, I've read all of no, I haven't read all. I haven't read Rick Riordan's adult books, but I've read all his other books, and they all have plots where things happen, boom, 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 like something happens every chapter, but you still get time to get to know the characters. Like, even if you just read A Lightning Thief, which is the first in the series, you get you get so wrapped up in story. I suppose, like, if you were crazy or if you were weird, you could just read A Lightning Thief because it's kind of wrapped up. It's not completely, but it's kind of wrapped up. You don't need to read the rest of the series. This one, being a supposedly standalone, doesn't work. It does not work. At least, not in my head. So, yeah, I didn't care about the characters. I felt like the twist didn't really work because I kind of knew it would happen. And because I didn't care about the characters, I didn't really care what happened. And the world was kind of, in my head at least, it was kind of too big, and you didn't really get enough of it. I mean, you get some of it, but I mean, I think I think also like my biggest pet peeve is this is the fact that the world is so big. If the world is so big, it should either A have been like a 500, 600 page book, because then you can expand and do everything you need to do, or it should have been a trilogy, a series. But to have a world so big, I mean, I don't know, at least in my head, when you have a standalone, at least a standalone fantasy, you should have a easy and quick uh, world building. Like, for example, Old Magic by Mary Crowley. There's time travel and there's magic, yeah, so there's fantasy elements, but it's set in our world, it's set in Australia, so it's urban fantasy. You have 2 or 3 chapters of kind of getting to know the characters, and then things happen. They travel to the past. It's time travel, so it's not a spoiler act. And then most of it takes place in the past, and then they come back to the future, and then anyway, it's old. But I mean, that book, it focuses on real life historical aspects, and it's not like it doesn't give you a lot of background because you don't need a lot of background. But yeah, it does it perfectly. And then you have, I suppose, there's not that many fantasy downloads, but yeah, the ones that I kind of think that really works are the ones that either A, very long, or B, the ones that are urban fantasies where you don't need to give a lot of input. So yeah, this one, oh, it's not fantasy, it's science fiction, but still, it didn't work for me. It didn't work. That being said, I'm curious, so when or if the movie happens, I'll probably watch it. And if this happens to become the first in a series, like if he writes more books in this world, yay, I'm gonna be checking out. But at this point in time, uh, uh, I might even unhaul it. I suppose I might probably unhaul it anyway because it's a huge book and I prefer the smaller paperbacks. I bought this because it was the first paperback that was released. And yeah. So, are you with me? Against me? Against me. Not like anyone disagrees me or with me. Okay, what have you read Daughter of the Deep? Did you enjoy it? Or not? Like me? How do you think fantasy can work as a standalone? Do you think that can work? Do you have any examples of good fantasy standalones that are high fantasy and not urban fantasy? Or like elaborate? Talk to me in the comments. And hopefully I haven't gotten too many unhauls and clicks from this video. But I don't know, I kind of want to give my two pence on this book.